This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya, from the Fort Hall School of Government. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at some of the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 25th of May 2020, and I am 2M.
I am JM.
And I am GK, and in case you missed the headlines, here they are. But before, Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak. Eid Mubarak.
Yes. Daily Nation. Uhuru's plan to reopen Kenya. Standard. BBI purge begins. And in the Star, secret plot to kill NASA. Eerie stuff. Shall we begin with the Standard? There's a purge.
Absolutely. Yes, the purge continues. The fumigation continues. And this time, it's not just in Jubilee, it's also in ODM and NASA.
Yeah.
So according to the Standard, ODM and Jubilee MPs are working to seize control of committees that will play a crucial role in passing BBI changes. The paper also reminds us that BBI is still on track. Indeed, Raila Odinga last week announced that the drafting of the report is at the final stages. And on Friday, during the Kindiki ouster, Siaya Senator James Orengo told Parliament that the National Assembly will play a critical role in the coming months to implement BBI. So, anyone allied to the Deputy President, William Ruto, is being uprooted. Pro-handshake MPs have reportedly been instructed to vote out committee chairpersons allied to the DP. And the reorganization of committees is set to commence this week. There are three in particular that they're looking at. They've earmarked Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, Committee on Delegated Legislation, and Constitution Implementation Oversight Committee. So we should expect more purges, more of a bloodbath this week.
As expected.
They brought it on themselves. It's going to come.
It's going to come.
And I think Kenyans should just be very open to this process in terms of let's get the best constitution that we can. Anyone that is an obstacle to that, that is good for country, then, you know.
That is good for the elite. What is good for the elite is good for us. When you have elite consensus, as we usually say, then the country is peaceful. There will be peace. Yeah, there'll be peace.
Interesting. Okay, so we have a three-part criteria that we're going to use to break down these headlines. We ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? I think it's very topical.
Absolutely.
Especially because the purge is, ongoing.
Absolutely.
Can we park it?
Yes.
Okay, let's move to the Star.
The Star says secret plot to kill NASA. Geez, I did not know it was alive. But anyway,
NASA has been dead.
NASA has always been dead, but to the Star, it's apparently alive. Anyway, what they're talking about, the Star has established that at least two political parties, Wiper and Chama Cha Mashinani, are trying to disengage from NASA.
Which one is this Chama Cha Mashinani?
It's the one for Isaac RUTO. Chama CCM, Chama Cha Mashinani, the way they like to say it, and to make post-election deals with the Jubilee Party. But what they're also saying is that Musalia Mudavadi has been meeting DP Ruto's allies, and first I think a guy called Waluke and Mandago, and there are whispers in the ground that Musalia could be teaming up with William Ruto. And I was like,
interesting.
But I think Mudavadi is playing a game here. He is the decoy that William Ruto will use, and just before they just sign a deal, Musalia will say he's supporting Uhuru Kenyatta.
Would he do that?
He will do it. He learned from Uhuru in 2013. You know, Uhuru gives him a call, says, "I'm coming to your house. You're going to be the presidential candidate."
And Musalia could use this as leverage, isn't it?
Absolutely.
To get a better deal.
Yes. The DP should recall, as you're saying to him, that a tiger never changes its stripes. Once a Kano baby, always a Kano.
Always a Kano baby.
Always.
Absolutely.
And that's what Davadi is. He's a Kanu man through and through.
A Kanu baby.
So he will end up siding with the right side of history.
Interesting. And so is it also that Raila may also not want to join the coalition just yet as he tries to figure out how he can get the best deal?
If there's anyone who has survived throughout this entire for the last 3 years, it's Raila. He was at the edge of political oblivion. He has come this far. He's not about to go to the slums.
Well, hopefully
he's headed to the hilltops.
Hopefully he signs a better agreement or some kind of agreement. The DP failed to do so in 2013.
Absolutely.
Okay, so do we pack it or do we keep it?
I think we throw it.
Throw it.
NASA is dead. What are you keeping it
NASA
for?
been dead.
Yes,
okay.
has been dead.
There we go. So in the Daily Nation, Uhuru's plan to reopen Kenya. And here the idea is that the president gave an address over the weekend as he launched his economic stimulus package.
Yes.
And he said, listen, the world is opening back up and so will Kenya. We cannot live in lockdown in perpetuity.
Yes.
And so he says that he's going to phase in, you know, the easing of the lockdown. And I think it's perfectly fine. I think and he asked Kenyans to sort of be more responsible. So we can't open up the country and then you all flock to the bars and restaurants. You have to still take those health measures. And just to point out that the idea behind flattening the curve wasn't that there would be, you know, one rise and one fall and then that's it.
Yeah.
The idea behind flattening the curve was that we could spread the infections throughout the year. Yeah. And the likelihood is that we'll have to do that because there's no vaccine in sight, right?
Yeah.
So either there's herd immunity where we develop immunity against this thing, or we can expect that infections will be there throughout. But can we keep the economy closed down because of this? Absolutely not. And you find countries all over the world are opening up schools. There will be peaks of infections as that happens, but I think we will be better for it if we just get on with our lives.
Fantastic. You know what, GK? 10 years ago, we had another stimulus package. Who wrote it down? It was President Uhuru Kenyatta. But then he was finance minister. Our GDP growth then was about 2.8%. When the stimulus package hit in 2010, GDP growth went to 8%. If there's anybody who's likely to bring the economy back to its feet, it's Uhuru Kenyatta. He's done it before, he will do it again. Yeah,
and I think the misconception sometimes is that a stimulus package will hit immediately and you will feel it immediately. I think there's some things that will stagger. You won't obviously feel some of these measures so soon.
Absolutely.
But we will pick back up.
Absolutely.
Okay, so who do we give our winning headline?
Daily Nation.
Daily Nation?
Daily Nation.
Thank you, because, you know, your freedom is near. By June 6th, you will be able to go wherever you want.
But do you really want freedom?
Yes.
I really enjoyed the lockdown, being home early.
I don't
moving around too much.
Some will beg to differ, JM.
Absolutely.
But let's give our winning headline to the Daily Nation.
Yes.
Onto the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country.
Yes.
Where we also have a 3-part criteria. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy?
We have Daily Nation, Iga. And Iga that has caricature of, oh my, Raila Odinga wearing the KANU uniform and Uhuru Kenyatta wearing KANU uniform, and they're shaking hands. But in the middle of the hand shaking is a mini-sized William Ruto. This is a miniature William Ruto, and the guy he's in pain there.
Oh my God! So we're not even seeing Jubilee colors anymore. It's just
I mean,
it's just KANU.
Daniel Arap Moi was right. KANU will rule this country for from the time he said in the next 100 years.
Yes.
I shudder.
And here we are. Here we are. Chama cha mama na baba.
Oh my Lord. Okay, let's park it.
Let's park that in the Standard.
Yeah.
You have a caricature of President Kenyatta holding a bag of money labeled 54 billion stimulus plan. And there's a dog beside him salivating over it. And the tag on the dog is Graft Incorporated. And this comes in light of the president's announcement of the 8-point stimulus plan. So Graft Inc. and Co. are looking at the 54 billion, and they obviously want to guzzle this one.
This is so pessimistic.
The cynicism here is quite frankly not justifiable.
I think we threw it.
President has worked hard to purge corruption out of this system. He's been ruthless in dealing with corrupt individuals. Terrible.
Can I throw
Toss
it?
that.
Yes, please, very fast. And then we have Ozone, a caricature of Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes. And
he's holding a heavy load called stimulus package. And the caption there is, "We can't live in denial." We can't continue with lockdown. I think the denial is a play on deni, which is loan in Kiswahili. I mean, the important thing, I think, for me is that Kenya is not in this alone. Debt is going to define a lot of governments in the next few years. This pandemic caught everyone flat-footed.
Absolutely.
I mean, I get the cause for concern, given that the stimulus package looks like it's addressing a lot of pending bills, VAT refunds, and not much in the way of stimulus. But I think we had to give it a chance and see what it can do for the economy.
And you know, I think the media is very guilty of this. They are guilty of creating so many ignoramus in society because because if you were to walk around even amongst our youth, you say, oh, what is Uhuru known for? You say, oh, a Denny, loan. Who told you loan is such a bad thing? After all, the loan that was probably being borrowed a week ago, or that we got, is to help us survive, is to cushion ourselves.
Yeah.
They themselves, all these young people, they have loans.
All of them have loans.
They all have loans.
Just to say loans.
So the key here is don't fear loans.
Don't fear
okay,
loans. Don't
so
fear
who do
loans.
we give our winning cartoon? Is there a winning cartoon?
No.
I like the squeeze. I like the RUTO squeeze.
The RUTO squeeze by Iga?
By Iga.
I mean,
Okay.
we all know it's happening.
Napenda.
He's being squeezed.
Iga, there you have it.
Yes.
You give us our winning cartoon.
I've just given it overrated.
And what is our final thought?
And now, our final thought. It is inspired by a book entitled The State of Africa, A History of the Continent Since Independence by Martin Meredith.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this book is covering Africa's transition from colonial rule to independence and the plunder that followed thereafter. And so this week we're going to explore this book and all its chapters, and we're going to look at the principal events and the key protagonists in recent African history. From the first generation of post-independence leaders that set a pattern that continues to present day, and we'll see how those patterns have played out. I'll give you a little bit of history. Martin Meredith is a historian and a journalist and a biographer. He has written several books on Africa and its modern history, and he worked as a foreign correspondent in Africa for The Observer and Sunday Times, and he was also a research fellow at St. Anthony's College in Oxford. So there we go.
So let's begin in Ghana. Britain's first, and then we'll begin with a chapter on the Gold Coast experiment. This was what Ghana was referred to in the colonial era. So Britain's first experiment, we're told, in constitutional reform for the colonies in Africa was in Ghana. And so in the year 1951, they proposed an advanced political framework for semi-responsible government. That is, government that would be elected democratically through a general election, in which the National Assembly would be dominated by an African majority, as well as the Executive Council of Ministers would also be governed by an African majority. So the British had socialized a Ghanaian elite to inherit them, and they carefully laid out a plan in which they would collaborate with this elite group of Gold Coast lawyers and businessmen and some civil servants whom they had socialized through their institutions of education and the church. And one man in particular was chosen to lead the transition on behalf of Ghanaians. His name was Dr. Joseph Danker. He was a highly regarded man by the British. He had a doctorate from the University of London. He had qualified as a barrister, written a book on law and religion. So a guy who had gone to finishing school. And he formed a party with his colleagues known as the United Gold Coast Convention in the year 1947. And fun fact here, Dr. Danker is actually the one who came up with the idea of dropping the colonial name of Gold Coast and changing it to Ghana. Ghana was an African empire that had flourished in West Africa during the 11th century. So that was one of his contributions. But Dr. Danker and his colleagues were the men of words. Yeah, they were not the fanatics, so to say. So they needed somebody with fire in the belly, somebody who could build up popular support for their cause. And so Dr. Danker kept asking, who can we hire as a full-time organizer for the party? And whenever he asked around, he was told of a certain Kwame Nkrumah. This is the name that kept on coming up. So Nkrumah at this time had lived in the diaspora for about 12 years in the US, in London. A politically ambitious fellow who believed in the Pan-African cause. And so when he was offered the job, he grabbed it. But his left-wing views and ambitious nature led to him falling out with Dr. Danker and his colleagues. So he registered his own party in 1949, known as the Convention People's Party. And he went around the country drumming up support for self-government from Britain. He appealed to all demographics. He was a man of great charisma. So he appealed to the homeless, the trade unionists, the servicemen in the army, petty traders, teachers. Everybody rallied behind this cause. And he told his followers, seek ye first the political kingdom, and all else will follow. So he's the person we attribute that quote to. And he pursued a campaign of civil disobedience, strikes, boycotts, agitation, propaganda. All of that was part of his repertoire, all intended to make Britain to agree to immediate self-government quicker than they had anticipated. And indeed it worked. In the year 1956, Ghana went into elections, and Nkrumah's party, the CPP, won an outright majority of 72 out of 104 seats. That's about 69%. And with that majority, the British were somewhat confident that Ghana could slide into independence, and they set a date for the 6th of March 1957, at which time the Ghanaians got independence. They were the first sub-Saharan African country to do so.
Wow, fantastic.
Fantastic. I was doing the chapter on the revolt on the Nile, and it's a story, beautiful story, of how King Farouk of Egypt lost power. So a story is told on a sultry night in sultry night in July 1952. King Farouk, smoking cigars, was doing one of his hobbies. He was gambling, and you know, he was at his resort in Alexandria. Then a call comes through. It's from Prime Minister. His name was Hussein Siri. And Hussein Siri warned him that there was a small group in the army that was trying a coup against King Farouk. King Farouk laughs, ha ha ha, and he says, that cannot happen. What a bunch of pimps they are, you know. And this guy was a confident guy, but the guy was only 32. I mean, what could dissidents possibly do to him? See, King Farouk was one of the richest men in the world. I mean, globally, he had the largest land holding in Egypt. He had 4 palaces, he had 2 yachts, he had 13 planes, he had over 200 cars, and he had mistresses from here to India. The guy was he was a quintessential playboy. You know?
sound like you look up to him.
Well, but the guy was also aloof, you know, a confident guy, but he was also aloof. But aloof enough to not realize that a coup was about to happen. Now, there was a man called Colonel Gamal Abdel Nasser. He was the leader of the coup. Now, for 3 years, Nasser had plotted in secret to take out King Farouk. And he had come up with a network in the army he called Society of Free Officers, or in Arabic, Dobat el Harar. That's what they would say in Arabic. Now, Nasser hated Farouk completely, and he hated his excesses. But mostly of what kept Nasser up at night was the defeat Egypt took in the 6-day war against Israel. And therefore he planned this coup. Now, he managed to divide this team of Society of Free Officers into cells of 4 or 5 members, and they were unknown to each other. But the entire group consisted of about 100 soldiers. Now, he planned to do the coup, to execute the coup in August. But then he got wind that the War Council of King Farouk was meeting at the army headquarters in Cairo. All the generals together in one room. Nasser guy takes all the revolvers, guns, cha-cha-cha, rounds up all his officers, and they head over to the army headquarters. There they meet minimal resistance, and all the generals surrendered to him. The coup was successful, to cut the long story short. Now, what happened to Farouk? Farouk, there was a debate within the ruling council then, what to do with him, either to execute him or to put him in jail or to have him go to exile. They finally reached a decision to have him go to exile in Europe, put him in his own yacht. The thing took off, and he abdicated the kingdom, and Gamal Abdel Nasser became president of Egypt.
Wow, fantastic.
Didn't know that.
So the importance of intelligence there, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And information,
absolutely.
and how to use it.
Plus, you know, the new CDF, this is General Kiboshi, he should increase his counterintelligence budget, because you just do not know who would be thinking of this plot.
We're living in perilous times.
Absolutely.
Interesting. So Martin Meredith ends part 1 of this book with the White South. And he outlines how, as the tide of African nationalism was sweeping through Northern Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, white minority governments in Southern Africa tightened their control, determined to bring that nationalism to a halt and to keep political power and wealth in white people's hands. And more so, he goes into South Africa for most of the part and details their struggle for independence, Black South Africans' struggle. But he also says how the chaos in Congo was cited as a big example of what happened when the guiding hand of Europeans was removed, because we all knew the Congo to be a place where people just plundered and fought and killed each other. And so to the whites, the communists were using African nationalists for their own ends, their ultimate aim being to gain a strategic hold over southern Africa and to capture the vast mineral riches. So white governments argued it was imperative, therefore, to curb the activities of African nationalist groups. And last week, I think we had Mandela's speech where he spoke when he was the first accused, and we saw how he describes the ANC's struggle for over 50 years, trying to do the anti-violence, the constitutional way of getting to independence, and it just didn't work. And so across Africa, you're seeing this new frontiers being drawn, dividing the black north from the white south, and marking out southern Africa as a seemingly impregnable white fortress of white power. No one could come through. So in South Africa, in 1948, you have the Afrikaner nationalists who have come to power bearing their own version of racial rules, what we now know as apartheid. And they're determined to ensure that white supremacy is there for all time and to destroy the black peril. That's what they call black power. And so there was no pretense about their objectives. The phrase was, from the prime minister at the time, either the white man dominates or the black man takes over. So domination was it. Meanwhile, the ANC has these really lofty and noble, philosophies. In their Freedom Charter of 1955, one of their phrases is, South Africa belongs to all who live in it. So they're thinking of a South Africa that, encapsulates white and black, and the white people are not thinking about them. So much so, anyway, so we have a new prime minister that comes in during this fight for freedom, called Prime Minister Verwoerd. And he believed that he had found the ultimate solution to the South African problem. He thought there should be total separation between black and white. So his idea was every race should have mastery over its own area. So he envisioned having 8 black nations within South Africa that ruled each other. So the tribes stayed separately because he thought they're fighting themselves, they're not fighting us, which was also interesting. But meanwhile, ANC and Mandela had at the time formed Umkhonto Sesizwe, which was formed after the Sharpeville massacres. But they were inspired by Che Guevara's detonator theory of revolution. And the idea here is that armed action on its own could create momentum among the population. So according to Che, it wasn't necessary to wait for a population to develop revolutionary conditions in reaction to an oppressive force, either foreign or domestic. So Che argued that a dedicated small group can ignite a revolution, thereby creating the conditions and the uprising at the same time. So here ANC decided that the armed wing was what was going to force the rest of the South African population to see that they have to fight for their rights, for what they believe in. So armed struggle, it was for them, and then it took really long. So on a day where we had a winning headline and a winning cartoon from the Daily Nation, I want to leave you with this. Let me go back to this quote. I have a better quote. When an Englishman once has your property in his hands, then he is like a monkey that has his hands full of pumpkin seeds. If you don't beat him, he will never let go. That was from Martin Meredith.
Fantastic.
And so that's how you see, you had to fight.
You have to fight. Armed struggle is the way to go. Even for the black Americans in America, armed struggle. I'm
going through it right now.
Armed struggle is the only way.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so have a good week. A good Eid Mubarak. Have a lovely evening. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, but find us on TV. We're on GoTV, Prime Free to Air, and Star Times.